So my name is Pascal Picq, and I'm working in Paléoanthropology. What is that? Paleo means very old. Anthropos is man, and logos is knowledge. So it's a large array of disciplines, scientific disciplines, dealing with human evolution and origins. So you have genetics, archaeology, prehistory, ethology, which is the study of behavior in our species and other species, and mechanism of adaptations. As a matter of fact, first I was a technician. I was supposed to become an engineer, to build cars, rockets, whatever you want. And after that, I was not very pleased with that, so I turned to theoretical physics. So I'm graduate in theoretical physics, which is fairly tough. And during the 70s, I met a woman, a very small woman, but very nice, going by the name of Lucy. Lucy, as you know, she's an Australopithecines, which means a group of ancestors of the genus Homo, of man, if you want. And she was used to live in Africa back sometime 3 million years ago. And she wasn't very tall, about 1 meter high. So I fell in love with for Lucy, and I met a great man, which name is Iweek, and I was able to change completely to learn and to make research in paleoanthropology. Now, why I am here? To speak about innovation, globalizations. 10 years ago, I wrote a book about the theories of evolution and about adaptation. And some people in your field, if you want, were interested in this kind of topics. And I gave a few lectures in front of big companies and different networks, for example, APM, which is Association Progrès du Management in English, the Associations for the Progress of Management, which it's a fairly big one, actually. There is almost 5,000 leader men and women, of course, of small and big enterprise in France. So it's a very good network, and there is a lot of experts, I'm supposed to be an expert, about evolution. Why evolution? Actually, for you and for many people, evolution is a very nice story, a kind of fairy tale about how dinosaurs, or maybe Australopithecines, or Neanderthal man, for example. That's only one part of evolutions. That's its historical part, the way the history of life has been. I'm going to talk to you about how to make evolution, mechanisms of evolution, how to make innovation, how to be able to compete and to stay in the rest of the Red Queen. The Red Queen, I will explain to you what is this concept. Actually, I was very surprised to discover something not very well known. Actually, your world and my world, I mean, evolution and business, by and large, of course, are starting together about 200 years ago. And it was in Northern England and somewhere around Scotland. And there is a group of very, very modern people. In this group, you find very outstanding names. And their society was the lunar society. Lunar society. They were used to meet together when it was full moon night. At this time, it was no power, of course, no gas, whatever you want. And so these people were Adam Smith, Erasmus Darwin, the grandfather of Charles Darwin, Matthew Boulton, James Watt. The Boulton Watt company was the very first company building engines to produce work in big factories. It was Josiah Wedgwood, the very outstanding and famous pottery, blue and white. The Queen Victoria was very fond about this Wedgwood potteries. It was also Benjamin Franklin. Passing some time, it was also Samuel Jefferson. He's American, of course. And these people were the people able to create what is liberalism, what is free enterprise. They are the creator of free enterprise. And they had a very big endeavor. They were able to understand that if in a society one group of people is able to exploit some other people, this society is not able to innovate. So they were very engaged for modern democracy. They were very engaged against slavery. These people were able to battle against slavery. The Wedgwood, the Darwins, and the other people, Wilberforce. Erasmus Darwin, the grandfather of Charles Darwin, he's the man who wrote the first book explaining that young women have to be educated like young men. They have to go at school and university. It's back in 1797. So these people are very modern. And there is some of you interested in marketing here? But marketing, no? So the first inventor of marketing is Josiah Wedgwood. Josiah Wedgwood belongs to not a poor family, but a very modest family. Very small enterprise about pottery. And he's got a very bad handicap. He had his right leg cut because of a big disease. So when you are in a factory and you want to make a pottery, you have to activate the pedal with a leg. With one leg, it's not possible. So he asked to his friend Matthew Boulton and James Watt to build the first engine to produce power and to make mechanical work in the first mechanical factory in history. And this guy is able to, he created the first meeting for professional, the first professional meeting for business. He was the first to create a catalog of products with descriptions and a price and everything. He's the first to get a sponsorship. He's the inventor of sponsorship, for example, the Wedgwood pottery, or the first pottery with the seal of the Kingdom of England. So it's a real challenge. And he's the first to imagine if you buy one product, the second one is half price. So, as I'm used to say, you'd better engage some handicapped people in your factories or in your business, because these people are going to be very innovative people. It's just a question to survive. But don't ask them to do the same things like not handicapped people, of course. It's quite stupid. So, it's interesting for me because I met the same group at the origin of the theories of evolution and the world of business and free enterprise, which is really interesting. Now, what is the theory of evolution? Forget all the stupid things about evolutions. The survival of the most adapted people, or the law of the strongest. That's just stupid things. The theories of evolutions, because it's a set of different theories, is a theory of change in nature. And when you are talking about innovation, imagine that life is able to innovate back to 3 billion years at least. Life is able to innovate, to adapt, and to change without manager, without research and development, without anybody able to be a leader of innovations. So life is able to innovate by itself. How it works. So my real interest when I'm working with big companies or small companies too, is to find if these companies are able to stimulate the natural patterns of innovations, and also or not the cultural patterns of innovation. Because sometimes the way we are thinking about the world goes against the capability to innovate. I'm going to give you an example. So while I'm talking in my field, even philosophy, I'm very much at ease in English, but I am in a field not very easy for me, so I apologize if sometimes it's a little bit hard for you. Basically, there is 3 ways to think about the world. The most common one is the world where we are living in didn't change. It has been created like that. Or the world is moving according to a cycle, that's a revolution. Revolutions means you make a cycle and you go back to the same point. That reminds me a remark by a former Minister of Economics in France, Christine Lagarde. It was a small change in our governance 2 years ago, but actually it was a very lagged change. So the journalist asked, come on lady, that's not a very big deal. You didn't change very much in this government. And she said, oh, come on guys, it's revolutionary. And these guys were looking for big revolutions, you know, Trotsky, Lenin, Karl Marx and everything. No, revolutions is to go back to the same point. Which was really funny actually. But all right, maybe it's my English. Anyway. So anyway, the same words don't mean exactly the same things. So be careful when you are dealing about adaptations, innovation, revolutions and everything. It depends of the context. Be careful. So the main way to think about the world is like that, or is making cycle. For example, the ancient Greeks were thinking about cycles. In India, for example, they are thinking about cycles also. So it's very universal. More recently, in the history of humanity, there is the idea of progress. The idea meaning that man is able to innovate, to be creative. Man is able to invent technologies, culture, artifacts, tools, whatever you want, societies, buildings. Man is able to find solutions to have a better life against nature. That's the real basis of the idea of progress. And I will go back about a few examples in my field. And the third way to think about the world, nobody understands it. And that's a shame, because that's the way it is. That's evolutions according to Darwin. They are going to explain to you. Imagine, but my colleagues disagreed about that. I was supposed to come with a chimpanzee, all right? So, I don't think you're a chimpanzee, but the chimpanzee is sitting next to me, and, well, for you it's obvious. The chimpanzee is very close to me, but to you too. Chimpanzees represent the closest species to us in actual nature. In the first vision of the world, you would say, it's Martin Luther, that man is as the image of God, while the chimpanzees is as the image of the devil. So man is the image of God, the chimpanzees is the image of the devil. So it doesn't change. It's like that. That's it. That's creation. No question. In the second vision, you would say, all right, the chimpanzees is very close from Pascal Picq, but Pascal Picq is more evolved than the chimpanzees. I mean, I can think about it that way. And you would say, man descent from the ape. You know, in English, we have two words for les singes. We have monkeys or macaques, baboons and everything with a big tail. And we have ape, which are gorilla, orangutan, chimpanzees, and bonobo. No, apes are very close to us. So you would say in that case, all right, the chimpanzees is very close from Pascal Picq, but is more archaic. So man descend from ape, with the stupid idea that the chimpanzees represents my ancestor, which is wrong. And in the third vision of the world, which is the best one according to modern sciences, you would say chimpanzees and us are brother in nature, which means that man is evolved, of course, but chimpanzees are evolved too, like other species, meaning that we have common ancestors. So imagine that I'm saying in the second vision of the world, chimpanzees is my ancestor. At this time comes another question. Please, would you like to explain why the chimpanzees didn't evolve and baboons are laughing in the savannah? You have to understand that all species around us are as evolved as we are, meaning that chimpanzees of today are not chimpanzees of yesterday. Men of today are not men of yesterday. Horses of today are not horses of yesterday. Flies of today are not flies of yesterday. You really have to understand, especially if you are thinking about globalizations, that all species and all civilizations, all countries, all cultures are able to be as evolved as we are. If you forget that, you're dead. That's reminds me a meeting like that with former students from Stanford. All these guys were Guy and Ged, were very successful. I hope it will be the same for you. And it was, like in this meeting, in this room, very international, beautiful diversity. And at some point, it was a Chinese friend, a Chinese woman from India, and in front of us, it was a friend of them asking. It was a few years ago. Hey, come on, guys. Can you explain why you, the Japanese, especially the Chinese and the Indians from India, you are so good? As a student, why are you so good? Suddenly, you are so good. And the two friends just started to look at each other. They laughed and they said, hey, come on, guy, we are back. So, because the Occidental world, I mean, Europe and America, Japan, of course, which is not Occident, were so good during the 20th century, we were unable to understand one thing. Any culture is able to be the first. Any country can be the first. I remind you that for 2 millenniaries, the first culture and economics in the world was China until the end of the 19th century. And China is number 2 nowadays, and very soon maybe number 1. So, if you keep in mind a stupid idea of evolutions, meaning I'm superior to the other ones, you don't see the other guys coming up. That's the first point. There is some people here coming from Middle East. I remind for people in Europe that what we call the Islam enlightenments are at the origins of the scientific evolutions in Europe. So, I'm not saying it's turning, I don't believe about all the theories of cycle and things like that, but it's turning, it's changing, you know. So Africa will come up soon, Brazil is coming up very rapidly right now. So Darwin was used to say, never say you are superior. Darwin was used to say the species able to survive are not the most clever, the most intelligent, only species able to adapt. So adaptations means you have to understand the world and to find the patterns of innovations. I will come to this point, of course. So my point is the following. The first point is the following one. Whatever your way to think about the world, nobody is going to contest that the chimpanzees is the closest species to me. But in the first vision of the world is like that, and it doesn't change. In the second vision of the world, this guy is archaic and I'm more evolved. In the third vision of the world, the good one, everybody is as evolved as we are and is going to change. So, 3 ways to think about the same thing, which is our close relationships. 3 ways to understand it, and 3 ways to make action. That is the most important. Now, listen to that. All the countries with a very strong economics based on natural resources are countries with governments very much influenced by fundamentalism. I'm not saying by religion, but by a fundamentalist vision of religion, which is quite different. That's creationism in Texas and Middle East, in Midwest, I'm sorry, in USA. That's Mr. Harper, which is the Prime Minister of Canada. And as you know, they get out from the agreement of Kyoto for the exploitation of gas with schist bitumineux, I don't know the name in English, I'm sorry. You have, of course, Saudi Arabia and Emirates with a very strong conservative aspect of Islam. You have Russia with orthodoxy, and you have also problem in Australia. So, to make things clear, it's not a question of religion, it's two ways to think religion, which is quite different, all right? So, for them, all these natural resources has been given by God, and we can exploit them because it has been given to us. That's it. That's their moral position. In Europe, in the eastern coast of America, Japan, Korea, what is dominating is the idea of progress. A very good culture of industrial innovation and transformation. As a matter of fact, it's very amazing. I read the very recent report by Louis Gallois in France about competition in France and the new change for French economics to be competitive. And I was very surprised because Korea, South Korea, was ranked among emerging countries. I mean, Korea is not an emerging country. They are very good. So it's incredible because in Europe, we keep in mind that we are the best in the world. We were unable to see the Japanese revolutions, and we are not able to understand how Korean people are good. They are much better than Japanese today. It's just incredible. You imagine when you have the wrong vision, you don't appreciate what's going on. That's it. And if you are talking about now Darwin and evolution, so it's going to be my next point, you have entrepreneurship and you have creativity like Silicon Valley or Grenoble in France and everything with a real culture of entrepreneurship. Next step. What is the theory of evolution? I told you it's a theory of change in nature. Why do we have change in nature? The first reason are natural catastrophes. Meteorites, earthquake, volcanoes, ocean currents and everything. These events are making big changes in terms of environment and in terms of climate and everything. So, I'm sure you know the movie Jurassic Park. You are a big dinosaur, a big T-Rex, and you get a big meteorite. So when people are saying that evolution is taking time, it's wrong. Evolutions can be very brutal. If you have a big event like that, it's a real sudden change. And there is a good news, dinosaurs are still alive. Birds are dinosaurs. A chicken and a T-Rex is exactly the same. But for cooking and chasing, it's quite different anyway. No, but that's the same group. Second, the second reason why there is always evolutions, it's us. That's the race of the Red Queen. It's coming from Lewis Carroll, Alice in the Wonderland. Alice is walking and running along with the Red Queen. But she's surprised because the landscape is following Alice and the Red Queen. So Alice, she's very astonished, and she said, hey, come on, we are running, but we are not moving relative to the landscape. And the Red Queen is very upset. She said, hey, and in your world, but in Her Majesty, in my world, when I'm walking, when I'm running, I'm moving relative to the trees, the houses, and the landscape. And the Red Queen is very like that. And she said, hey, listen, girl. You should know one thing. In this country, you have to run as fast as possible to stay in your place. Which means that the really big thing you have to understand, a species is not changing by itself. A species is changing because there is competitions with other species, with predators, with diseases, with viruses, with bacteria, with food access. Everything, all these factors are playing a role in the change in an ecological system. For you, if you are in a company, if your company is successful, other companies have to move. If other companies are moving, you have to move. So you have to keep pace in the race of the Red Queen. One response is, oh, come on, I'm tired about this race, and I'm going to stay apart. We call that isolationism. But I tell you one thing, when a species or a small ecological system is in isolation, the next step is death. You cannot survive because soon or later some other species or some other agents will come in competition to you. If you are outside the Red Queen race, you have lost in terms of competition, in terms of innovations, and you are going to disappear. It's very important. I'm going to give you an example. We are here in Europe, in France, in the Eurozone. About 10 years ago, a little bit more, it was different currencies in Europe. Le franc in France, Dutch mark in Germany, and the lira in Italy. Imagine a French company making a very good job in terms of innovation, production, marketing, distributions, whatever you want. This company is making a great job. But suddenly, you have a sudden change for the rate of currency. The lira is getting lower. So you lost all the advantages, all your work is disappearing because you have an external event, you cannot control it, and making the difference. That's a kind of catastrophe. But now we have only one currency zone, the Eurozone, and the same currency in different countries. So you can make comparison and you control the factor about the currency you're going to use. But so for 10 years now, we have a very high rate of competition in Europe because the rest of the Red Queen is working very well because this factor, the variations of currency, is controlled. Now about crisis. We are talking about crisis. What is a crisis? I'm sorry for you, but a crisis is quite normal. In evolution, a crisis is normal. That's not very fair. I agree with you. But there is two main reasons for a crisis. First, an independent event, volcano, meteorites, subprimes, for example. Well, you are a big company, the subprimes, you don't have access to credit, it's a problem. The second reasons are success. So be careful, I repeat. The second reasons for a crisis are the consequences of our success. The best example is Kodak. Imagine 20 years ago, Kodak was a very big company with almost 92 factories in the world. It was very big. But Kodak was so powerful. Kodak was the leader for cameras and films. They were in competition with Agfa and Fuji, for example, the race of the Red Queen. But because they were so good, they didn't prepare the big change. And they were unable to see new innovations in terms of new breaking innovations with keys, which is numerical apparatus. Be careful. When you are successful, if you are not prepared for a big change, you are going to disappear. I'm used to say we have to change a winning team. It's surprising for you. You have to change a winning team. If you want an example, we have to take a look at companies like Michelin in France for tires, or GE in the States. These companies are very old. Or Saint-Gobain, one of the oldest factory in the world is Saint-Gobain in France, very innovative. You have to keep the pace of innovations to survive. I'm going to give you an example. Imagine you are in the rainforest, and for any reason, one year there is plenty of fruits, a lot of fruits, plenty of fruits. So chimpanzees are going to eat fruits. Baboons are going to eat the same fruits. Gunnons, which are very small monkeys living in trees, in tree crowns, are eating the same fruits. So if you are coming on the field, you are making observations, and you say, hey, come on, a chimpanzee is quite different from a baboon is quite different from a gunnon, and all these guys are eating the same fruits. Hey, if you have plenty of food, there is no selection. So everybody is going to be good. So when I met some managers telling me, oh, listen, Pascal, in previous years, we were very good. So successful, big managers, big guys. I say, come on, guys. If your market is not selective, everybody is going to be good. So don't believe that you're good because you're successful. If the environment or the market is very open, whatever you are doing, you are going to be successful. But let's go back to our fruits and monkeys and apes. There is plenty of food. So the next years, you will have more chimpanzees, more baboons, more gunnons. Populations are going to grow up. And at one point, even if trees are very generous, there is not enough fruits, and you have a crisis. There is a saturation of your market. So when you are very good, be careful, you have to prepare the fact that you are going to reach the limits of your success. If you're not prepared, you are going to disappear, which is very tough. I agree with you. How to make innovation? There is two main ways to make innovation. The most common one for us in human societies and enterprise and companies is what we call Jean-Baptiste de Lamarck. Jean-Baptiste de Lamarck was a very famous and standing biologist 2 centuries ago. And he's the very first to give a very clear account about adaptation. It's what I'm calling active adaptation. And if you read books or you have lectures about innovations, you can read that market is the source of innovations. The market is changing. We have to find new products. You have to find new ideas. And For that, you mobilize what is a very human capabilities, which is creativity. I'm able to understand something is changing, the market is changing, or I try to know the market, so I'm going to find solutions, new products. So because the environment is pushing me, I'm going to be reactive and to make innovation. That's the kind of engineer like type of innovations. And we have to do that, of course. And in France, in Germany, in Europe, in continental Europe, Japan too, Korea too, we are very good to make that. Very good culture of engineers. That's fine. But think about that. Can you explain me why in continental Europe, if you look at the first 25 biggest companies, there is no one company younger than 40 years. All European big companies are more than 40 years old. If you look at the first 25 companies in the United States, almost 1/3, and very soon 1/2 are very young companies in new technologies and biotechnologies, meaning that Intel, Microsoft, Facebook, Intel, everything. Why that? Our schools are very good. The ESSEC is very good. Our grade schools in France are very good. Our universities are very good. So why are we unable to have new technologies, new fields of excellences? Because in continental Europe, we still think about the second vision of the world, a vision of engineers we move because we have to move. But if everything is doing well, we don't move, which is a good problem. And we are very good to develop already existing sectors. In France, in Germany, we were very good for the technology of water, roads, buildings, cements, everything. So we are very good in already more or less all sectors of economics. We are among the best in the world. Railroad, of course, cars. All right, today everybody is thinking about a German car, but 20 years ago, I remind you, the French cars were among the best in the world. So it's moving also, it's changing. Fine enough. Simply because our scholar system is designed to form people like you, to teach people like you, to reinforce an already existing system. We ask to our best students, you, to make a choice, and every year in spring you have a ranking of the main biggest companies where you wish to make a career. So we ask you to make career in already existing big companies. So we don't ask you to create new companies. We don't ask you to be entrepreneur, to create new activities. Now, if you watch again the movie Social Network about Facebook and Zuckerberg, there is a very interesting scene. You have the two guys in the president of Harvard's office. So there is a discussion, and at some point, the Harvard president said, listen guy, in this university, all students are creating their job. So when you are entering a business school in the United States, we ask you to create an enterprise, a company. In Europe, we ask you to reinforce an already existing system. And that makes a big difference. Moreover, in France, especially in France, but it's true also in Germany, know a little bit Germany, Switzerland also, we don't have in continental Europe a real culture of entrepreneurship, a real culture of try and error. If you are an entrepreneur, sooner or less, you are going to make a mistake, like in research. And we don't like that. Bankers don't like that. And you can hear very often that, oh, that's a French guy who's got this great idea, but to make the development, you have to go in England or United States. I give you an example about to listen your music, about the MP3 system. According to my knowledge, it's coming from a German laboratory. But the system has been developed in the United States. Why that? We have to go back to Joseph Schumpeter. Schumpeter is a big economist who said, he wrote that the biggest book ever read, ever published in human history is The Origin of Species by Charles Darwin. Schumpeter is the first to speak about evolutionary economics. That's why we are so close in terms of scientific meaning. So we have to make a big difference, and it's coming from Darwin and Schumpeter, big difference between discovery and innovation. In France, we are very good to make discovery. In France, we have a very good culture of entrepreneurship. But, the problem is that you don't find the financial and administrative support to make your company. So the real challenge is not to make inventions. The real challenge is to go from a discovery to its applications in terms of market adaptation. That's the very weak point in the French culture. And as a proof, as you know, the young men and women from France are very successful in England, in the Silicon Valley, in Quebec, and elsewhere, Shanghai, for example. So it's a shame because whatever the kind of government in France, left or right wing, they have the same culture. We miss dramatically in France a real aspect of cultural entrepreneurship. If you are talking about, for example, risk capital, statistics are very easy. You try to support 10 projects, 2 are going to be very successful, 3, 4, 5 are going to be so-so, no benefits but no loss, and 2 or 3 are going to be a failure. But what's the deal? We don't care. Because 10 attempts and 2 very successful, and you're going to have big benefits. The trouble in our culture, we want to be successful from the very beginning, and we don't accept a culture of try and error. And Pascal Picq was a very successful French businessman. He created a big company which name was Business Object. And he told me, you know what? Americans are very doubtful about me. I said, why? Hey, come on. You are very successful. Your company is working very well. He said, well, I agree. I have a career like a French guy. I mean, big school, Central, big companies, I'm very national, I'm doing well. But there is a problem for American people. I didn't ever make one mistake, and it's very suspicious for them. No. So it's a real question of culture, as I try to tell you. So how to make innovation now? I told you about Lamarck. Lamarck, there is a market. We try to take a bigger part of the market, and we are making creative innovation, active innovation. Now, the way to make innovation according to Darwin. And I'm not going to tell you, you have to be like Lamarck or like Darwin. It's just a question of management. When you have to make a choice to go for Lamarck or to go for Darwin. And Darwinian innovations works in 3 steps. The first step is to making variation. You ask around you to your colleagues to make proposals, to give ideas. And you don't care if these ideas are good or bad. First, you're making variation. We call that sometimes brainstorming. Sometimes it was marvelous thinking. Well, great. Well, anyway, what you have to do is to give ideas, whatever the kind of idea. And your genes are doing that. Your genes have mutations. Genes are able to duplicate. Genes are able to be deleted. Genes are able to make new combinations, bricolage in French. It's just a machine to make variation. And Darwin was the very first guy able to understand that variation is the very basis for innovation. Meaning, in this room, all our differences are potential innovations for our species, which is a great idea. Second, after variations, you're making selection. I said, okay, among these ideas, I'm going to take this one, this one, this one. Second step, we call that democratic management, or if you want, project management. And the third step is development. You have to go and to finish your project. So I'm going to give you an example. You know, I'm sure, Pixar making these marvelous movies. After Toy Story, it was a great success. So we have to make Toy Story 2. So they are working in a kind of Darwinian way. They gather all the people involved, men and women, in a big room with very bad coffee and very dry donuts, so you have to innovate rapidly as to survive. And they ask for everybody, okay guys, okay ladies, give any kind of the idea. And one guy said at one point, oh, I'm thinking about a house flying with balloons. But they didn't take this idea. But, okay, we are taking note anyway. So it was Toy Story 2, great success. And a few years later, oh, do you remember your idea about the house flying with balloons? And it's this marvelous movie, which is Up in English, as far as I remember, là-haut in French. So, if you are in the management of innovation according to Darwin, first, everybody is able to give you a good idea. Research and development is not only the job of R&D. First point. Second point, to set situations where people are able to feel at ease and to give any kind of idea. If you say, oh, I'm thinking about a house flying with balloons, hey, come on guys, you're a little bit stupid. No, never say that. And plus, an idea is not good or bad by itself, according to Darwin. It depends on selection. That's it. So that's why I'm making working with big companies. I tell them, go back to your documents and imagine all the good ideas you did, which are in your notebooks and you didn't apply. I'm not saying they did not make a good job, but at this time it was not the best idea to take. So, Pixar, I'm going to give you another example about Monoprix. Monoprix is a retail shop in France. It's a chain. And 10 years ago, Monoprix was very low level our business. So a guy came from the Club Méditerranée, and he was thinking, how I am going to work and to innovate in that field, in this business. And he was very Darwinian. He said, okay, I'm going to ask everybody to make groups of thinking. But people on the cashier, people working with the stocks, people working with buying, people working with transport and everything. So he was making diversity. And he asked them, okay, any kind of idea we are going to note. And after that, they make selection. And after that, development. And in a few years, this mark grew up in quality and is very good, is now in upper level in terms of a retail shop and everything. So it's really interesting to work about variations, selection, and development. And that's not the same kind of management. You know what? Chimpanzees are doing that. Chimpanzees love meat. Chimpanzees are very good hunters. After eating, they're able to see two monkeys, colored monkeys, moving in the trees. And chimpanzees are thinking, wow, well, that's a good dessert. We're going to catch two monkeys for dessert. And I tell you, to catch two monkeys in a tree, because monkeys have big canines, it's a kind of sport. It's very dangerous. But in that case, in the group of chimpanzees, they know that one guy is much better than the other guys to lead the hunting party. And that's not the first ranking male or second ranking male or third ranking, sometimes a low ranking male. But this male is recognized as the best leader to lead a hunting party. And even dominant guys will accept the leadership of the most competent individual to lead the hunting party. And after that, they're able to catch a prey and they share it, and everybody is going to respect the work of everybody, which is interesting. So what we have to learn now in our companies is the fact when we are making innovations, the leader, a man or woman, is not always the most highest ranking person, but the most competent to lead the project. And we are doing that in research, for example, but I know in companies that's not always, but it depends, of course. So that's why Michelin is so good. When Michelin is still the leader on the tire market, and when they're doing well, they ask to everybody at all levels of the company to make proposals for new ideas. And when the market is getting saturated, they have to make a choice for the good ideas. But if, like Kodak, you keep your advantage and you're not making previous variations or innovations, when you are in a crisis, it's too late to make variations because it's simply impossible. There is too much pressure. So when things are doing well, you have to think the next step. An example, it's about chess game. As you know, it's impossible to beat a computer. Computers are much better than us about chess game. From 1985, when Kasparov was beaten by Deep Blue, it's finished. Nowadays, there is a big computers. Its name is Hydra. It's impossible for the best chess player, master, to beat Hydra. But there is what we call freestyle chess games challenges or competitions. So freestyle means you have good chess game players with computers like this one or your computers. And Hydra has been beaten twice by a group of good chess players, but not big master, working with smaller computers, but in cooperation. So if you are the best player in the world, the computer is able to understand the way you are playing. But the computer is not able to understand how is coming the variations between the different actors. So, in other words, if you want to make good ideas and to be the leader in your field or your sector, business, it's better to have good cooperating people than a big head pushing everybody. You know what I mean? So you have to make cooperation. That's the best way to succeed. Hierarchy, social hierarchy, can be a real problem. In Japan, because Japanese people have another culture about animals. In Europe, we hate animals. We hate monkeys and apes. But in Japan, it's quite the reverse. So there is Japanese macaques, especially on the island of Koshima. You know these macaques by pictures. You know, they were used to take pictures of them in the winter time, so they spent a lot of time in hot water springs, and they have snow on their head, which is a little bit surprising about monkeys. Anyway, so we're talking about macaques. And macaques have, these ones have very hierarchical social system. An individual from above do not consider the guy underneath, and so on. So it's a very vertical way to deal with hierarchy. And there is a very innovative female. It was 50 years ago. Her name was Imo, which means sweet potatoes. And Imo is not a very dominant person. So our Japanese colleagues are giving sweet potatoes to these macaques. And if you are a dominant guy, you just sit down, you take your potatoes, and nobody is going to bother you. But if you are a low-ranking people, you have to take your chance. So Imo was used to grab a potato, but there is some sand or grit on the potato. So she learned to wash the potatoes in clear water. And after that, in seawater, which gives a salted taste. The same, our Japanese colleagues are used to give them, for example, corn. So they throw a handful quantity of corn on the beach, but there is sand. If you are a dominant guy, you take your corn one by one, nobody is going to bother you. But if you are a low-ranking people, you try to grab some corn, but you have a lot of sand. So Imo has the idea to put that in the water, and the sand is falling down, and she's able to gather, after that, the corn. So she's very innovative. And 50 years later, all macaques of the Koshima Island are doing that. So there is innovation, transmission, diffusion, culture. It's a culture. But it took 5 generations because high-ranking people are not supposed to learn from lower-ranking people. So these innovations were able to pass through young individuals. Now, if you are in chimpanzees are able to transmit on a horizontal way, transversal way, new innovations. So you're going to tell me, well, that's just macaque stories and chimpanzee story. Take a look again at the big movie, Le jour le plus long. Alors, in English, you know about the landing, the D-Day. That's right, the D-Day. And you can see that the German army is very much powerful than the Allies. But because the German army has very archaical command system, like macaques, it took 2 days to get the right informations to make movements. And the German army had lost the war because it was a very old-fashioned way to transmit the informations between the officers and the generals. So that's a key point nowadays. Informations, innovations, you can have very clever people, but if you don't have the right system to diffuse them, to accept them, you're going to lose your advantage. I'm going to go a little bit further now about innovation and behavior. I'm sure you know the neoclassical model of Homo economicus. Homo economicus is the rationale about making business. Homo economicus means if I'm going to make a deal, I try to get the highest benefit for myself. Fair enough. So my colleagues made experiments about that. And it's coming from the theory of games. That's the game of ultimatum. So, I don't know if your first name is? Martelia? Martella? Marcella? Non, ça va? Thank you. Donc, Martella, donc. Thank you very much. We're going to make a deal. She knows all the informations as I know all the informations about the deal. So, someone is going to give me 100 euros. And I have to make a deal with you to share this amount. So, according to the Homo economicus rationale, you don't have anything, so I'm going to say, all right, I'm going to keep 80 euro and to give you 20 euros. But at some point you're going to say, hey, come on guys, this guy didn't get anything before the game. And because he's got 100 euros, he's just giving me 20 euros. And you say no. And in that case, we are going to lose together. Nothing for you, nothing for me. In all the experiments in different cultures in the world, in fact, people are dealing about 55–60% for me and 40–45% for you. Why? Because we are humans beings. I want to have good reputations in front of you, and maybe the next steps, you are going to get the 100 euros, and if I was able to make to you a very bad proposal, you are going to respond with a bad proposal. And so in all cultures, there is a deal between 55–60%. And the same in monkeys. We have done the same experiments in monkeys, and it was an expedition in a big pharmacological group. They were unable to understand why the experiments didn't succeed. It was macaques. And some macaques were designed for the experiments, not the other one. So the first group didn't get any food, and for the experiments, and the other groups had some food because they were not concerned. And it didn't work. And they were able to observe that macaques having food were sharing food with the other ones because they know that the day after or 2 days after, it was a new situation where they were not able to get food, but the other guys to get food. Because it's a question of survival for the group, simply. So it's not pure altruism. That's interested altruism. And in one experiment with capuchin monkeys, two very nice monkeys from South America, they're doing a very nice job. They're very clever. And as food, they get some cucumber. They love cucumbers. So they're doing their work, and they have cucumbers. And at some point, you give grape to one of the two guys. So they're still doing the same job, right? One has cucumber, and the other one has a better salaries, which is grapes. And really rapidly, the first guy is going to say, hey, come on guys, I agree, I am a monkey, but I'm doing the same job than this guy. He's got a better salary, I go on strike. Why? Because monkeys, apes, and humans, we have very special neurons here. We call that mirror neurons. And what is the most important for us is how we watch other people and how other individuals are watching us. So we have a very strong personal feeling about the way other people are thinking about us. So which means when you are dealing with the real roots of equity about innovations, we really have to pay attention to the way you are going to récompenser, comme on dit. Pardon? To gratify, thank you, your colleagues and your colleagues. So, which is interesting now, I told you, I'm going to finish now, I told you that I was very surprised to be invited to go in your field a few years ago, of course, and first to not discover, but to rediscover that, in fact, economics and theories of evolutions are coming from the same cradle 200 years ago. And nowadays, new experiments, a few Nobel Prizes, recent Nobel Prizes in economics, are based on this kind of studies with monkeys and anthropology. So it's really interesting to see that about innovations, management, about the way to deal with groups and to deal with change and adaptations. In fact, we go back again in some common fields of researches and to learn a little bit more about anthropology and evolutions for our companies or our societies. So it was 3 parts in this talk. I'm sorry for my English. I didn't speak for a long time in English. First, to understand, first point, there is natural patterns of innovations, whatever the species. Variation, selection. It's universal, all right? Second, there is social reasons in terms of behavior and social behavior, making that we are able to make innovations or to catch it or not. Macaques versus chimpanzees. And third, we are human societies. And the way we think about the world in terms of philosophy, religions, ideology, teaching, or whatever you want, it could be a factor which is very good for innovations, or a factor going against the natural and ethological patterns of evolutions. So in a Darwinian world, that's our world, there is no solution. There is no the right solutions. What you have to find in terms of managers is what is the main solutions in terms of management. Lamarck, Darwin, hierarchy, non-hierarchy, variations, selections, development. That's just a question of management. If you have to really take your most clever competencies just to make the right choice as to be able to stay in the rest of the Red Queen. Thank you.